Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. I'm Rochelle Batiste with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Godwin Friday revealed in his presentation of the national budget for 2026 in Parliament on Monday that the country is experiencing a silent crisis of poverty, referencing data from the 2018 Survey of Living Conditions and the 2023 Population and Housing Census. The Finance Minister noted that 1 in 3 people is living in poverty with very low income to survive on.
The cost of meeting even the most basic nutritional needs has risen sharply, with the indigence line now exceeding $3,642 per adult per year, or roughly $10 per day, simply to eat adequately. For households, the challenge is even more pronounced. In 2024, an average family of 3 required a minimum monthly expenditure of $1,898 just to escape poverty, a threshold that continues to drift further out of reach as inflation steadily erodes the value of hard-earned wages.
The Finance Minister said that women are the most affected and that communities in the rural north of St. Vincent are being hit the hardest, which he described as the forgotten north. He said that improving standards of living in these communities is critical.
Better standard of living and prosperity are not touching the lives of large segments of the population. Poverty in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not random. It has a specific face and a specific home. The forgotten north. Poverty is spatially concentrated in the rural northern communities, the same red and orange zones that bore the brunt of La Soufrière's eruption. Gendered vulnerability. A significant share of our poor live in female-headed households. These women are disproportionately affected by caregiving responsibilities and limited access to land, making them more susceptible to economic shocks.
The Prime Minister said that his government will address the issues affecting the people as they work to improve lives and ensure that development benefits all citizens and not just a few.
Madam Speaker, the poor in our country live predominantly in hazard-prone areas, exposed to floods, landslides, and volcanic activity. Their livelihoods are often informal, lacking contracts, benefits, or social security coverage. This gray zone of employment creates a cycle of job insecurity where earnings are low and inconsistent. Furthermore, access to health care and quality education remains a challenge in these remote communities where economic pressures lead to higher school dropout rates. Limited access to formal credit or insurance means that when a disaster hits, our citizens have no safety net to catch them. Under my watch, this ends.
And Vincentians can expect no tax increases this year. However, the government will be tightening revenue collection through its revenue strategy. This was disclosed by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Dr. Godwin Friday during his presentation of the $1.9 billion budget in Parliament yesterday, with current revenue projected at $906.9 million. The Finance Minister outlined several revenue collection measures, including property taxes, which will be carefully analyzed across the country.
Equities between taxpayers and persistent revenue leakage. In addition, a substantial number of properties, Madam Speaker, remain unregistered off the tax rolls, further constraining collections and weakening compliance. And for a long time, many of them do, Madam Speaker. Government will therefore commence a nationwide property registration program to expand coverage of the tax roll, and a comprehensive national property revaluation exercise. These reforms will broaden the tax base without increasing rates, enhance fairness, strengthen compliance, and generate sustainable revenue to support fiscal consolidation and local service delivery.
The Prime Minister noted that the Tax Administration Act will be fully enforced. He pointed out that growing import concessions are costing the government 30% of the total value of concessional imports. As a result, revenue that should have been collected at the border was given up through concessions, a matter he said will have to be addressed.
And reduction in total import concessions applied uniformly across categories will generate an estimated additional $30.4 million in government revenue each year. This figure is derived directly from the 2025 revenue loss and demonstrates that even a modest and disciplined rationalization can create meaningful fiscal space. Importantly, this revenue gain can be achieved without abolishing concessions outright. Instead, it can be delivered through targeted priority sectors, tighter eligibility criteria, and stronger oversight, particularly where concessions are discretionary. Special cabinet concessions.
In addition to revenue and capital receipts, financing of the budget will also come from prudent borrowing consistent with the government's medium-term fiscal strategy. And opposition leader Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has dubbed Budget 2026 a failure for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In his contribution to the budget debate this morning, Dr. Gonsalves said that the estimates were not carefully planned and expressed the view that the budget sets the country backward.
Madam Speaker, these estimates are a major failure for the country. They're bad. They're wrong. They're going to lead us to damnation. Listen to what I have said to you today. This is an awful budget. A speech. I notice in the speech, you abandoned the idea of, you had 4 pillars going in. Agriculture, fisheries, tourism, and you had well, the blue economy, and then you had the orange economy. You have dispensed with the orange economy and call it a new economy now, dealing with IT. One of the fellas who wrote this thing for you wrote that for him in 2000, you know. Listen to me. You think I don't know? I've been around long enough. I know people's style of writing. I know how they do things, what they say, I know what their words. Take a fresh guard. Wheel and come again. This is a disaster for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm obliged, Madam Speaker.
The opposition leader noted that some projects are unclear, particularly in terms of how they will be executed, and called for explanations.
Only $12,000 from CDB funds is allocated to the BNTF 11 in 2026. That's what the estimates say. The 2 ministries which you have combined, fisheries and agriculture, before they were combined, now they separate. The capital budget is actually over 5% less. The capital budget for the Ministry of Transport and Work is 10% lower than in 2025. However, the local loans component by the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure is 153% higher than in 2025. You know what that means? Hardly any of that going to get done.
The opposition leader also pointed to a shift in the allocation of spending for 3 clinics, including the one in Beckway.
Tale of 3 clinics funded by the Saudi Fund: Central Kingston, Paget Farm, and Calaqua. Designs are complete for Calaqua and Central Kingston clinics, but the overall funding is reduced by $1.1 million in the 2026 budget as against the 2025 budget. While the Paget Farm own is increased by $1 million, even though the designs for Paget Farm are not complete. Why? I'm helping you to ask some questions, you know. A local counterpart funding allocation is supposed to be reflective of the amount of money to be spent in actual external loans or grants. It's supposed to be a fixed percentage of the external funding. However, all three clinics get the same cut and pays $650,000 counterpart funding, though they are wildly different allocations of expenditure from the Saudi fund, ranging from $0 to $1.7 million. This is sloppy work. You're going to have problems. The counterpart funding for the Central, Kingston, and Calico clinics, $650 each, exceeds the external Saudi fund allocation of $403 and $0 for you.
Meanwhile, in an unrelated matter, the opposition leader issued a strong call for regional solidarity with Cuba, emphasizing the country should not be left to fend for itself amid growing international challenges. In his statement on radio yesterday, Dr. Gonzalez warned that silence on the matter could have far-reaching consequences, not only for Cuba, but for the wider Caribbean region. He noted that sustained diplomatic relations are critical to regional stability and cooperation, cautioning that inaction could eventually have repercussions closer to home. He stressed that maintaining strong diplomatic ties is essential to preserving shared interests across the Caribbean, particularly in areas of development, health, and international representation.
As the consequences of silence and disunity draw closer to home, geographically, politically, and economically, CARICOM's voice must be heard clearly, and the full weight of our sustained diplomatic influence must be mobilized in Cuba's immediate interests and our region's continued existence as independent sovereign states. The Unity Labour Party celebrates the long and mutually beneficial relationship with Cuba and CARICOM member states, a partnership commemorated each year on Cuba-CARICOM Day. This relationship has delivered tangible benefits in healthcare, education, science, culture, disaster response, agriculture, sport, and South cooperation. It has transformed thousands of Caribbean lives for the better. The courage shown by the Caribbean leaders more than half a century ago in standing with Cuba must not now be abandoned in Cuba's hour of need. Caribbean peoples do not turn away from friends or neighbors in distress. We help and we speak out when injustice is done. The Unity Labour Party expresses full confidence that the leaders of CARICOM, the member states of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States, CELAC, and the neighborly and compassionate American people can collectively persuade the United States administration to abandon this ill-advised, illegal, and inhumane policy and to bring to an end the suffering now being inflicted on innocent Cuban men, women, and children. A mature conversation without preconditions between all the relevant states is urgent, necessary, and desirable. That is our statement on Cuba.
The opposition leaders' remarks come as regional leaders continue to assess the implications of shifting global dynamics and their potential impact on small island developing states. We hear that a sea surge affecting the southern Grenadines, particularly the island of Canouan, has forced residents and boat owners to take precautionary measures as rough seas impacted coastal areas earlier today. Several boats anchored along the shoreline had to be pulled further inland amid concerns they could be damaged by the rising and surging waters. Residents also reported that seawater reached into some homes and beachfront resorts in the low-lying areas. However, SVG-TV News was unable to confirm whether any major structural damage was recorded. Residents said it's been years since they have seen such a sea surge. According to a weather report issued at 6 p.m. today by the SVG Met Services, weak and unstable conditions continue to linger across the islands. The Met Office noted that sea conditions remain moderate in open waters, with northerly swells ranging between 1.5 to 2.0 meters. As a result, a marine advisory has been issued urging small craft operators and seabaiters to stay out of the water. The advisory warns that a breaking wave action in the presence of rip currents could pose serious risk to marine and coastal activities. Authorities say they continue to monitor the situation and are advising coastal residents to remain alert as weather and sea conditions may change. And the Garifuna Heritage Foundation, in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture and Creative Industries, the Ministry of Education and the University of the West Indies Global Campus, has officially unveiled the program of events for the celebrations of National Heroes and Heritage Month 2026. The activities, which will run from March 6th to the 15th, will highlight Garifuna history, culture, resilience and contributions to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, while welcoming members of the Garifuna diaspora returning to their ancestral homeland of Uramin. Among the major highlights is the 13th International Garifuna Conference, scheduled for March 11 to the 13th at the UWI Global Campus. Discussions will focus on reparatory justice, cultural preservation, indigenous development, and the future of the island of Balasso. As outlined by team leader of the National Schools Garifuna Folk Festival, Cledonna Peters, a significant new feature this year will be a dramatic reenactment of the 1997 exile of the Garifuna to Balasso, aimed at deepening national understanding of this pivotal and painful chapter in Vincentian history.
The National Schools Garifuna Folk Festival commences on Friday, March 6, 2026, with a march past from the Bishop's College grounds to the Independence Park, formerly the Victoria Park, from 8:30 a.m. Cultural activities will officially kick off at 9 a.m. Performances will be done in all domains of the arts, such as dance, song, music, choral speech, poetry, and or a medley with which would be a combination of any two categories mentioned earlier. Awards will be given out to the most outstanding school in each of the aforementioned domains. Furthermore, awards will be granted to the best overall theme Garifuna presentation and the most creative use of the Garifuna colors. During the march, awards will be given out to the largest group of students involved in the march, the most organized group, and the best Garifuna chant. As part of the festival, exhibits would be on display in the form of foods, artifacts, and the history of our ancestors. This history exhibition will be undertaken by the secondary schools. Awards will be granted to the secondary schools in the following areas: most outstanding traditional booth, most outstanding research paper, most outstanding oral presentation, and the most creative local dish. One of the newest but main highlights of the festival is the Garifuna Fashion Show. Students would be adjudged for the most outstanding Garifuna fashion, and each year it is getting bigger, brighter, and more fashionable. In this fashion show, we urge the festival students and teachers to rep their Garifuna colors, yellow, black, and white, as they simultaneously showcase with pride the true representation of the Garifuna colors, the yellow, white, and black, indicative of the Amerindians, the food we eat from the cassava, the Africans, and also to the peace and tranquility in and among the Garinagu.
Additional activities throughout the observance will include cultural showcases, educational forums, youth engagement initiatives, and community events designed to strengthen national awareness and appreciation of the Garifuna heritage. The month-long observance will culminate with the annual pilgrimage to Balasso on March 15th, allowing participants to honor the memory of their Garifuna ancestors who perished there. Members of the public schools and the Garifuna diaspora are encouraged to participate fully in the activities. As schools across the country enter their athletic season, dietitian Alicia Ferdinand is encouraging students athletes to pay close attention to their nutrition to support performance and overall health. Speaking on NBC Radio Face-to-Face program recently, Ferdinand stressed that proper nutrition is essential for athletes, explaining that the body requires the right balance of nutrients to function effectively during training and competition.
And nutrition is very important for an athlete. Because just like a vehicle, Johnny, when you have to service, you have to put your engine oil and all these other things just for it to function properly. It's the same for the body of an athlete. You do have to fuel your body appropriately, and that is through proper nutrition, where you include your macronutrients, which includes your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your healthy fats, with your micronutrients like your calcium, your iron, and all these things come together and they fuel the body properly, because then it's going to allow you as the athlete now to train longer and harder. It's going to ensure that you concentrate, because just picture running and you're not concentrating. Picture running and you're dehydrated.
Right.
So it's very important. Nutrition is very important for our athletes to make sure that they have everything together within the body so it can help them function, just for them to be successful in whatever competition or training event that they're going through.
Ferdinand also emphasized the importance of incorporating healthy fats into daily meals, explaining that unsaturated fats are more beneficial to the body and help support energy levels, brain function, and overall well-being.
Some
Healthy
examples.
fats, and when we're thinking about healthy fats, we have two types of fats. So we have the unsaturated fats, which we will consider the healthy ones, and the saturated fats, which we will consider the more unhealthy aspects. So we are telling persons to look more at the unsaturated fats, which you can get naturally through your peanuts, your natural nuts, your zabuka, our local zabuka. You also can get them from some oils, but you have to be mindful. So we're not looking at very oils that have been through a high processing in terms of frying and what's not. So natural oils is also considered healthy. And what's the function of these healthy fats in terms of the body? It will provide some form of energy. So the body is such a smart mechanism in that for an athlete, it will use some fats just to get a bit of energy, just to go through whatever training or event. But then when we use the unhealthy types of fats, that can slow down the body a bit. So look at more healthy fats. So our nuts, our zabuka, our healthy oils, those are things that you want to include more in terms of when you're preparing or eating in your meals.
Additionally, Ferdinand advised that heavy meals should be consumed 4 to 5 hours before an event, allowing adequate time for digestion. She added that within that window, athletes can rely on light snacks to replenish energy and maintain performance.
Right, so once you know your race is at 5, food in general takes about 3 to 4 hours to digest. So you can have a solid meal, but what we would recommend, that solid meal should be a balanced meal, ensuring that you do have your carbohydrates, you do have your proteins. And when we look at our proteins, always make sure that the protein is prepared in a healthier manner. So we're not going to be doing the high fat types of cooking methods for protein. We're going to do the healthier methods. So whether the protein is steamed, boiled, baked, etc., grilled. And then we can have some veg. So what I would recommend is that you go for the veg that are easier in terms of on the stomach. So things like pumpkins and carrots, because when they're cooked, they're softer, so the body would be able to process them a bit faster. But a solid meal 3 to 4 hours before your 5 o'clock event is completely fine, because the body would have had enough time to take that meal and broke it down properly. So you would not feel fatigued during your event or any sort of muscle cramp, etc.
The Caribbean Innovation and Leadership Lab, SIL, in partnership with the Ministry of Education of St. Vincent and Grenadines, will host an Innovation Bullion Forum on Thursday, February 12, 2026 from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the UWI Global Campus. A news release says the event forms part of the ongoing Full Potential project implemented by SIL in collaboration with Ministries of Education in St. Vincent St. Lucia and Dominica. The forum theme, Co-Creating Solutions for Safer, More Inclusive Schools, aims to engage educators and key stakeholders in constructive dialogue on innovative strategies for addressing bullying in schools. It emphasizes students' well-being, inclusion, and fostering a positive school climate through teacher-led innovations and evidence-based practices. The sessions will be co-facilitated by a team of experts, Dr. Carrie Wright, SIL Monitoring and Innovation Specialist, Angel Gaglin, St. Lucia Country Coordinator and Full Potential Project Lead, and Yvette Antoine, St. Vincent and Grenadines Country Coordinator. The Full Potential Project, funded by the GPE, KEX from 2024 to 2027, empowers educators across the Eastern Caribbean to create affordable solutions for equity and inclusion, including anti-bullying initiatives.